Hi, Daily Dosers. My name is Shara, and I work with junior high at the Vista campus. And today we're going to learn two lessons from toddlers, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, my toddlers specifically. And it comes from my son's, one of his first prayers that he ever prayed when he was about 2 years old. I asked him, hey, do you want to thank God for something tonight? And he just kind of stares at me. So I'm like, okay, he's going to repeat after me. I go, okay, say, Jesus, Jesus, thank you, for mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, sister, sister, and goes on until finally he interrupts me and he goes, my turn. And he now has me repeat after him and he says, airplanes. So I say airplanes. For dogs, dogs, cats, cats, papa, papa, airplanes, airplanes, Gigi, Gigi, airplanes, airplanes. Airplanes tends to be the pattern there. But every night we do this, I say, hey, what can we thank God for? And he can list off a bazillion things. And I think as toddlers, it's pretty easy to list off things that you're thankful for, like bubbles and crayons and friends and airplanes, especially as a toddler when the hardest thing you went through that day was your juice box not being the right flavor that you wanted. But as adults, sometimes it becomes a little bit harder for us to list off things that we're thankful for. Sometimes it's because life is just so busy that we haven't even stopped to think about the things that we can be thankful for. Other times it's because people are mean, we're in a tough situation, we're going through something difficult, there's a heartbreak going on. And sometimes it's even harder to thank God for being God, for his character, for his goodness in our lives. And it reminds me of this quote by Christy McClellan, a Bible teacher, where she says, we tend to stare at our lives and glance at God, but we want to stare at God and glance at our lives. My question for all of us today, including myself, is how often do I focus on my life, the good and the bad, at the expense of staring at God? Is God this sideline consideration, or is he the main event? Where does my gaze go in the midst of the busyness around me? Or even better yet, where does my gaze go when I'm having a quiet moment of reflection? Is it going to my life and the things going on around me, good or bad, or is it going to God? So what happens when we stare at God instead of staring at our lives? Well, Psalm 27 actually talks about this. Psalm 27 is a beautiful psalm that David wrote in the midst of enemies coming at him, war against him, and he pours out all these things about God and his character. And at verse 13, at the end of this psalm, he says, I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your hearts be courageous. Wait for the Lord. He says you're going to see the goodness of God in the land of the living. The land of the living could mean here, this world now, as the scripture refers to the world as the land of the living, but it most certainly also means heaven, the new world, the new creation time where we get to be alive and new and whole with the Lord. And it says that we're going to see the Lord's goodness. But how do we see the Lord's goodness if we're busy, if we're going through life, if we're staring at our lives? Well, it says it right there. We just read it. It says, wait for the Lord. The word wait is not like this active, sit back in your chair, have a drink, and just wait for God. Waiting is an active thing. A beggar waits for someone to give them money. A student waits to be taught. A servant waits on his master. A child waits on their parent. Waiting is active. Well, one day my daughter, who's 5 years old, was waiting for us to come home after we went to go see her Nana. And we were coming home to tell her that her Nana had actually passed away. So I'm expecting my daughter that when I give her the news that Nana's no longer with us, for her to stare at her life around her and think, Nana's not going to be there to buy me presents. Nana's not going to be there for parties anymore. But the response of my daughter was, did you see the miracle? Did you see the glory of God? My 5-year-old said that. Because she was staring at God, his character, and his goodness, instead of just staring at her life and the situation that's going on around it. So my challenge for you and I today is how can we see the goodness of God by staring at him and just glancing at our lives? I hope this has challenged you and encouraged you, and I hope that you're staring at God until we see you next time.